For this episode, we want to discuss best practices for maximizing your EHR. And that can mean a lot of things, but when you hear best practices for maximizing your EHR, where does your mind immediately go?
Yeah, it's a great question. And where my mind immediately goes is most people are using 10% of their EHR's capabilities. Like that old statistic about your brain, we only use 10% of our brain or whatever. Same thing with EHRs, most people just get up to frankly, the bare minimum they need to do what they're used to doing, and they never learn anything new. And there's a few ways I think that some low hanging fruit ways for people to level up. The analogy that I always use is for your EHR, your PM system, it is a core part of your process of your business. You almost need to treat it like any other continuing education piece, right? And so doctors, obviously, there's a certain amount of hours of education you're expected to do every year, and that helps you keep on top of your clinical game. For your operational game, you need to be devoting some amount of consistent time to up leveling yourself and the staff. And so that's probably the first biggest headline is it is going to take a little bit of time, but the time is very well spent learning a lot of more capabilities, a lot more functionality. Um, every day we're talking to people who didn't know what they could do in their current system, right? And we always try to be transparent about that. Where if it's something, it's like, hey, I'm looking at Barty because my system, I want this. It's like, well, why aren't you using that functionality that's available in your current system? And sometimes they know, and sometimes a lot of times they don't know, right? And it's like, okay, well, have you considered just activating that feature that you already have or going to learn it? And to be honest, now that Barty, our platform has so many pieces of functionality, we're at that same point where people go, oh, I didn't know that we could send mass email marketing campaigns. Like, I didn't know that we could send a link for the patient to pay their invoice on their phone. And um, so there's a lot of benefits to staying up to date with the capabilities of software. But I think the first headline is you do need to invest time, you and the staff, even if it's 1 or 2 hours a month. It's good to carve that out, put it on the calendar, put it as part of staff training. Um, some other practical tips we say: have a champion in the office for everything. We always like to have like one point person for maybe it's contact lens sales, one person for your insurance testing, one person for your EHR, and that person should be the rallying the troops. That person should be an expert in that software. Maybe even thinking about paying them a really small stipend, extra couple $100 a month or something, to stay on top of the updates, to stay on top of things that you hadn't used before. But as your practice grows, maybe you need better billing capabilities. Maybe you're adding an insurance that you didn't take before. Maybe you're doing procedures that you weren't doing before, so you need new templates in the exam. Maybe you're stocking a new piece of inventory. You need to make sure that's reflected in your optical software. So have a point person. I think even if you have a point person, though, the other sort of uncomfortable truth of the matter is that the owner needs to know the software better than anyone. And so we often find that the owner, who's the doctor, maybe just knows the EHR part really well. You need to know the ins and outs of a lot of the software. Maybe you don't need to know the billing module to the same degree as your biller, but you need to know enough to be dangerous. And people are going to follow your lead. Where if you as the leader are investing that time to learn and become an expert, your staff is going to follow along. But if they know that you don't know anything about it, they're going to be able to get away with also not knowing anything about it. Um, so I think that's an important piece. Even if you decide to do that, okay, like how do you do that? How are you spending the time to level up, and like what specific actions can someone take? Um, the first one is like so obvious, it's almost painful, but like, are you getting the update notifications from a software company? Meaning, like, are you on the email update? Like Barty, for example, we send out every month, here's all the new features we want. Are you getting that as owner? Are all of your team members on that email just to get the information? Is if there's a web page, a lot of software companies also basically have a page where they post all their updates. Bookmark that page. Carve out 30 minutes once a month to go visit that page and read through the updates, and you're like, wow, they fixed that issue, or they've added this capability we didn't know about. So make sure that you at least know where that information is, you're subscribed to it, and you're able to access it.
I think a lot of
The other really low hanging fruit.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
A lot of what you
go ahead.
touched on there, again, are like really, really important. And so something that I've sort of wrestled with is when I'm introduced to a new piece of anything, basically. If somebody says, "Hey, Steve, you've got to deal with this now," the type of person that will figure out the best way to do everything that I can in that software. Like the example in my head is Excel, right? Or any spreadsheet tool if you're using Google Sheets or whatever. The obvious difference between somebody who knows what they're doing in Excel and somebody who doesn't uh, measurably changes how much time it takes me to get it from where it was to where it needs to be, right? And Excel is a massive piece of software, but it's kind of a blank space unless you know what you're doing. And many PM systems, many EHRs are that way too, right? They're customizable to large degrees, but if you customize them in a particular way that only works for you, the rest of your team might struggle to get that customization internalized and figure out what to do with it. Um, what I wanted to ask you about here is how does hiring come into play in this? And the reason I ask, there are people who are tech savvy and people who aren't. And it's not really an age thing. Once upon a time, I thought it was kind of an age thing where like, oh, as we get into the newer generation, like everyone's going to be tech savvy. That is absolutely not true. If you're listening to thinking like, oh, young people are better at tech, like maybe on the margins, but in practice, there are people who are way younger than I am that are terrible with technology. And there are people way older than I am who are way better with technology than I am. Like it is not an age thing. There is a comfort, there is an ease of extending your knowledge to software.